Hello everyone, this is to be an overview of the game Storm of Steel by Decision Games. It's a big box game. You can see my box got a bit battered and squashed. It's, as you might be able to tell from the cover picture, it's from the First World War. You can see some tanks, early tanks in the background there, up and over the top here, and then some of the cavalry charges, at least as seen on the eastern front. And it also includes naval warfare, and there's air components within it. The Great War, and there's guerrillas and secret agents and things like that featured in it as well as poison gas attacks. Now, what I aim to do in this video is to give you a brief overview of the physical components, and then what makes this game stand out, what makes it a bit different from others in terms of its concepts and procedures. So to start with, it's a big game, so you probably can't see all the way back, but the map on the stretches all the way back to here. Can't really see it so well under it's stuck under a shelf here in my room, but you can already begin to see the map's a bit of a strange shape. So here you have the Russian Empire coming up to here. You have Germany here and here, Russia here, and Austria-Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, Albania, Italy here, and then France and Spain. Almost, yes, Spain does have some units which can come in. Great Britain up here, Denmark, Sweden and Norway. So you can see there's this part of Russia stretches up. So if you consider this as kind of like an L shape, so if this was on a table in the centre of the room, you'd have space here for like player aids, for setup, or to perhaps cut in if you had an odd shaped table. But then it gets even odder as we come down to here, and then this is the Middle East theatre. So you have the Eastern theatre, the Western theatre, and then the Middle Eastern theatre, with Libya, Egypt, and the Ottoman Empire coming up here. Libya's owned by Italy, or under control of Italy, and Egypt by Britain. As the game starts, you have Persia here, and then we've got Baghdad and Basra here. So what later is Iraq here is part of the Ottoman Empire, which stretches, of course, all the way up to Constantinople, and then to the edge of Bulgaria, Serbia and Greece. Bulgaria here. So it's an odd-shaped map, and in fact this little corner here, or armpit as it were, you cut out of the top of the eastern front, and otherwise it's 3 map sections that you put together in a kind of like a wheel, and then add that little section there. So it's kind of an odd shape, and as you can see, I've built it, I've extended my table out. So this is the edge of my table, as it were, and I've extended it out here to fit in this bit, which means that excuse me, I can get in a bit closer to here, or else it's a very long stretch all the way up to there. Now I don't think many, if any, units are I'm not sure. You might have of course the Americans and the British, I don't know, and some others of the intent to brought units in along here in the time of the Russian Civil War towards the end of the First World War. So yes, there may well be units that come in over here, but otherwise that's quite a big expanse of wilderness. But still, it's a bit of a stretch up to here or even here, so it's nice to have this cut in so you can get to the western front very easily. And while I say that, I must just mention this cutout. Oops, I got it upside down. But you can see it's the Western Front essentially writ large. So it doesn't fit on there because it's kind of double the size of the Western Front as it is on the map, and that is intended obviously to give you to put down somewhere and to give you some ease of congestion, which otherwise you might get with big stacks of counters. Now you won't get huge stacks of counters in this game because you have 3 combat units to a stack, but then you might have like a fortress marker, a headquarters, and maybe some odd brigades in that as well. But still, you know, you can imagine the congestion in that area could get a problem. So that's the first thing to note, as that makes this game stand out in the physical production is the odd shape of the map. But I think it's quite good because otherwise, essentially, the map would just extend along this line. You know, it would be a square shape extending all the way up there, and then these areas would have to have tables on them. Essentially, they've taken those tables off the maps, and they're produced that you have a fair bunch of tables that come with the game. And interestingly enough, again, they're in the size of the box. So instead of like 2 A4 or letter size pieces, you get these huge sheets. You get terrain effects combat tables twice, one for each player, and then you get various other tables, setup sheets and stuff, and then also some further single sheet tables. What I've actually done is I photocopied those, or I can't remember, I might have taken them off a fan-made sort of supplement and put them in booklet form, so it's easier, and I've highlighted some parts of them. So I've taken from the rulebook the sequence of play there. So you've got the tables here, but we'll go into the tables when we get into the play. But you can see there's quite a lot of tables and charts that come with the game. Here's some errata, a few pages of that, quite a lot, but some of it's quite sort of long, but often it's a bit more clarifications. More tables, turn tracks, one for each side. So again, each morale and merchant shipping index, and that's all that comes with the game. And so you note that seeing you have tables for both sides, it does take into account the fact that this is a large game and each player might be quite far away from each other on opposite sides of a large table. So what else do you see? Well, there are some player-made, fan-made, what do you call them, things to help. So, for example, in turns, it's important to record losses because you accrue morale points at the end of a turn according to losses, and you can also gain morale points according to obtaining objectives, which requires you to maybe determine a certain number of losses. So somebody's actually put these handy little boxes to put the card that you're trying to, which shows the objective you're trying to gain, the units that are satisfying that. So you've got for the Eastern Front, for the Western Front up there for each side, and then some miscellaneous, just general losses. Then what else do you have? Oh yes. So this is also to give you an idea of how the game is. So that this is the turn track, and I've just amalgamated the two because playing this solo, obviously. So it's got the notes for the intent and the notes for the central powers. So basically, it's a 2-player game. And you've got shipping index and morale level. So morale for each side starts at 100. As soon as it reaches 0, the game is over. It can end before that on the decision of the players. And then you assess the level of victory. And like other Joseph Miranda games, this game is by Joseph Miranda, like, for example, the Russo-Turkish War, which I played recently. He offers, for each side, there's 3 points of victory, and then you assess victory on the on the comparison of those. So for example, if you obtained all your 3 points of victory, i.e. the enemy's morale went down to 0, and you took 10 of their capital and or industrial hexes, and then another thing, so 3 points, you would gain a huge victory. I forget the terms he used, but perhaps I should go into that in a bit. If you only obtain 2 of them, it's a good decisive victory. If you only obtain 1 of them, it's just a partial victory. And if you obtain, say, 3, and your opponent obtains 1 of his, then that brings your victory level down to 2. So that's a neat way to assess victory. Then I think the last sort of, one other physical component I need to mention is this, which is the world map, otherwise known as the also it includes the commerce raiding display. So you've got commerce raiders and convoy escorts. Then you can see America's here at the moment. You've got Brazilian forces, Portuguese, you've got Japanese, Americans in the Philippines, and you also have marked here uprisings on behalf of the Central Powers in China and British Africa. So those represent not necessarily actual rebellions or such, but more like sort of centres of support for the Central Powers within otherwise entente countries, and it could go the other way. So yes, you have sort of political considerations in that in this game. So the map of the world is divided into squares or oblongs, because that's also necessary for naval movement. So you will have naval movement on